Judean People's Front. For the People's Front of Judea.
Monty Python took a while to come together as a cohesive group. The 5 British Pythons, John Cleese, Graham Chapman, Terry Jones, Michael Palin, and Eric Idle, were all comedy performers who ran in the same circles. Terry Jones and Michael Palin attended Oxford and performed at the Oxford Review. Graham Chapman and John Cleese met at Cambridge, and Eric Idle met them a year later and all performed in the Footlights Review Cambridge Circus. When John Cleese was touring on the Footlights Review, a trip to tour in New York City led him to meet help animator and photojournalist Terry Gilliam, who photographed him for a spread. The 5 young comedians began appearing on different BBC radio and TV shows as either writers or performers, finally all converging on the Frost Report. Yes, the Frost v. Nixon Frost, where all 5 of them worked as either cast members or writers.
My wife is on several committees, runs the local opera group, and is secretary of the Bridge Club.
My wife is a member of the Mothers Union, enjoys organising coffee mornings, and is a driver for Meals on Wheels.
My wife is pregnant again.
We give dinner parties 2 or 3 times a week. This enables us to keep in touch with our wide circle of friends.
We give a wine and cheese do once a month. This enables us to do it on the cheap.
Her mother comes round Saturday nights and drinks my Guinness. This enables her to get drunk for nothing.
John Cleese brought Terry Gilliam aboard for an ITV show they were developing called Do Not Adjust Your Set.
Last week, you remember, I was showing you how to make a bed for your roses. Well, this is what it looks like when complete. All nice and tucked in there, you see.
By this point, John Cleese and Graham Chapman had a distinctly aggressive and satirical writing style. Cleese and Chapman ended up in a room with Michael Palin and Terry Jones and Eric Idle, pitching a new BBC sketch show.
Monty Python, the Flying Circus!
Cleese and Chapman would remain writing partners, while Palin and Jones paired off, and Eric Idle would write alone. They would then come together and put all the sketches together, and Terry Gilliam would draw animated sequences in between the sketches. This collaboration on the new Monty Python's Flying Circus lasted from 1969 to 1974, as well as a 1971 movie composed of sketches called And Now for Something Completely Different.
And now for something completely different.
In 1975, Monty Python was in full gear, although the BBC show Flying Circus had ended, and they put their collaborative energy into a movie, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. The Arthurian movie maintains a disjointed, surrealist, sketch-like feel, while managing to, like the Book of Tales that King Arthur is known for, act as a series of connected stories. This was good for the Monty Python style of collaboration, where teams would split off. But during the Holy Grail press run, they decided to do something edgier and different for their next project.
And now for something completely different.
Eric Idle came up with the title Jesus Christ, Lust for Glory, after the patent released in the UK gave it the name Patent or Deal and Triumph. Doing a movie about Jesus Christ seemed too edgy even for Monty Python. But while brainstorming, they came up with the idea of doing a case of mistaken identity about a guy who gets mistaken for the Messiah. And thus Life of Brian was born.
The angle that we all agreed on in the end was that you'd look at the historical situation in Judea at that time. It was a time when the sort of millennium was being sort of thought about again, and people were expecting God to come down and clean up the world and all that. So people were looking for Messiah.
They didn't want to do the same thing they had done on Flying Circus and Holy Grail, but wanted a script that was more straightforward and cohesive. Although still having the same issue, there's a very funny sequence where Brian gets rescued by a spaceship because they couldn't think of an escape. This was a tactic they used all the time in Flying Circus, where Terry Gilliam would draw them out of skits they couldn't think of an end for.
Oh, you lucky bastard.
Breaking into their pairs, they then met together in Barbados for 2 weeks and hammered out the rest of the screenplay. Graham Chapman had been drinking quite a bit, but wanted to play Brian. John Cleese wasn't sure, but after Chapman quit drinking right before the shoot, everyone agreed. They headed off to Tunisia, where they'd be able to replicate the Middle East. One thing that got under every Python's skin was that the mid-20th century Christianity they all had some experience with was fully mediated by the churches.
There was a lot of religion thrown at us, but very little that was explained, certainly satisfactorily. I'd been confirmed, and I'd sat around for some weeks expecting some golden glow to descend on me, and when it didn't, I became fairly atheistic or humanistic.
Rather than explaining Christianity in a way that might appeal to rationality, organized churches just laid out the information for the masses and expected them to just follow blindly. The idea of this messianic figure then felt ridiculous and ripe for the type of lampooning that independent thinkers point at forms of blind authority.
Hear that? Blessed are the Greek. The Greek. Well, apparently he's going to inherit the earth. Did anyone catch his name?
You're not going to thump anybody.
I'll thump him if he calls me Big Nose again. Oh, shut up, Big Nose. Oh, what? I warned you.
And it wasn't just religion, but political dogma and ideology that also demands the same blind obedience and also requires martyrs. Those leaps of faith are funny when mediated by organizations and institutions who clearly have an agenda. What happens if they get the information wrong? The other plot, where Brian joins the People's Front of Judea, who seem more intent on fighting the similar Judeans' People's Front than the Romans, similarly shows the dogmatic political sectarianism that also leads to people needing martyrs. The answer is ultimately to think for yourself. Skittish financiers began falling through almost immediately. However, with legions of fans out there hoping to see another film, including their famous friends, George Harrison stepped forward to finance the production with that sweet Beatles cash. George Harrison later admitted he just wanted to know what they had created. The Pythons knew this concept would be controversial, but they weren't ready for what happened next. The film was banned in Italy, Norway, and Ireland. This was used in the film's promotion, with posters in Sweden reading, "So funny it was banned in Norway." And in England, a crusading conservative activist named Mary Whitehouse, who had spent the 60s crusading against dirty television and teaching sex ed in British schools, turned her activism onto boycotting Life of Brian. Many English localities decided to either ban it outright or give it an X rating. Mary Whitehouse had led the protests against films throughout the 1960s and 1970s, including a large boycott of The Exorcist, last week's episode. In 1977, Whitehouse found her new favorite type of crusade after going after the gay news in British courts. She had objected to a poem about a Roman centurion who fantasized about Jesus' crucifixion holes. The charge of blasphemy had stuck, with gay news getting shut down.
As it went on, an extraordinary thing happened was that we were the ones with the serious points, and they were the ones who were playing to the crowd.
I simply don't think it was worthy of you. It was the sort of thing, as I say, that at Cambridge the footlights did on a damp Tuesday afternoon, or the lower fourth when I was a schoolmaster.
You keep making the basic assumption that we are ridiculing Christ and Christ's teaching, and I say that we are not.
The protests and boycotts this time ended up with Michael Palin and John Cleese going on TV to debate Christian activist Malcolm Muggeridge and the Bishop of Southwark. Terry Jones later summed up the defense. The Life of Brian was heretical, not blasphemous. It doesn't take aim at Jesus or his teachings, but pleads for independent thought as an antidote against the type of blind obedience that leads to religious believers killing each other over misunderstandings about Jesus' teachings on peace and love. The big objection that Christians in the UK and the US had to Life of Brian was the final crucifixion scene. They claimed it was making light of Jesus' crucifixion, though he does not even appear in the scene, and that it was making crucifixion seem like a jolly good time. Terry Jones, for one, hit back, saying that he felt like it was sick that Christianity turned a form of torture into a religious icon. And, as Terry Gilliam has expressed, the irony is palpable. Here, a movie which mocks blind obedience and the mediation of religious organization to information was being boycotted by people who hadn't even seen it yet because of what they were told was in it. The height of this came during the debate where Malcolm Muggeridge admitted that he even missed the first 15 minutes and so never understood that Brian wasn't Jesus. As for Mary Whitehouse, she'd go on from there to coin the term video nasties, which we talked about when we covered Possession.
But Brian, you know what they say? Some things in life are bad. They can really make you mad. Other things just make you swear and curse.
Anyway, before I introduce the panel, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Hit that bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live stream, send us a super chat, which helps me keep the show running, and which I am obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Movie Night Extra. All of our after parties are on there forever. Okay, let me introduce the panel. Conan Neutron, host of Protonic Reversal, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, and frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends, neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends has a new split LP with Lung Adult Prom available now on Bandcamp. J. Andrew World, illustrator, book cover artist, artist for Give Them an Argument, co-host for Movie Night Extravaganza, and Bad Takes. Ryan Lake is a philosophy professor at Georgia State Perimeter College, has made frequent podcast appearances, including on Give Them an Argument, and is on Twitter at ChaosPet. I, of course, am your host, Forrest Miller, a well-known wise man of the Wise Man Trio. What do I bring to the table? Well, myrrh, of course. What is myrrh? Well, it's a great big beast.
There you go, folks. There you go. Yeah, this is the first Python we've done, yeah?
Yeah, but we did do. I mean, we did Time Bandits, which obviously doesn't count whatsoever.
That's a Terry Gilliam.
Yeah. But I got to use some of the same intro stuff to explain Terry Gilliam's life, so it was like deja vu.
Perfect. Yeah, we also did 12 Monkeys, which is another Gilliam joint, but yeah.
I mean, Gilliam sort of transcends Python, right?
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. I feel honored to be here for the first Python. This is great.
There you go.
It's our first Python.
Oh, no, it isn't. What about Terry Gilliam? Shut up. I think
sometimes I feel like this podcast is the when he comes in, he's like, I'd like to have an argument, please. That fucking whole sketch.
Absolutely. Boy, ain't that the truth. I think the most important thing about this movie on rewatch, because it's been a long time since I've seen this, is it's still funny. So I'm going to put that out right there, because there are people that claim that it isn't, and they clearly are idiots or they have no sense of humor, because it's still very
Who said it wasn't? Who said it's not funny?
I just told you, idiots. I was very clear about who I was talking about.
I feel like there's a lot of idiots.
There are.
And it's still hilarious. Yeah, I hadn't watched it in many years. And then I just, during the pandemic, I was showing my nephews Python movies. So I showed them Holy Grail first, of course, and they loved it. So then I showed them this, and they were very confused because they weren't raised religious at all. So they had no idea what most of the humor was. So I had to explain it. And then, so I explained a lot of the themes to them. They're like, oh, that sounds stupid. Okay.
I think I had somewhat of a similar trajectory. I mean, I was like raised in a family that was somewhat religious, but like I watched Holy Grail first for sure. And then me and my brother got really, really into it. And we watched it probably 50 times. My brother had this thing where he really liked the animator had a heart attack. And we just rewind it over and over again and make fucking Terry Gilliam have a heart attack over and over and over again. But then I watched this and I was definitely like, I don't like maybe some of the jokes. I mean, like obviously like the whole biggest dickest thing I thought was funny even when I was like I don't know, like 8 or
Sure.
9.
I mean, yeah, there's humor that plays to 12-year-olds. Absolutely.
As I'm often fond of pointing out, because there's a lot of things fully steeped in Catholicism and whatnot. I did not grow up religious, and I thought this movie was absolutely hilarious from the very beginning, because for me the absurdity of it is sort of like, that was sort of sharing my thoughts on like, why do these people believe this? Meaning of Life does a pretty good job of explaining the difference between Catholicism and Protestantism, which is funny because that's actually how I found it. I was like, oh, why didn't anyone just say that? Like, like no one could explain to me why they were different.
Kids.
And like, I was like, this funny movie just explained like that entire concept to me in like 3.5 minutes. And like, I got it more than I got from anyone like talking about their stupid religions. But point of fact is that, I mean, I thought this was hilarious, and obviously almost more hilarious because I was coming at it from a place of irreligiosity, and that like I already thought most of this stuff was absurd. So the fact that these guys thought it was absurd as well was like great. But I think, but it's also like, it's not just religion that gets it. I mean, this is like grassroots organizing gets it like between the eyes, like several times.
Absolutely,
you know?
yeah.
And I finally watched, I think Andy did too. I finally watched like the deleted scenes where it's like the entire sequence with the People's Front of Judea.
Yes.
And like the Nazi Zionist thing, which really it hits fucking hard this week especially, but like
timely, right?
Yeah.
I've seen all that stuff because I was borderline obsessive Monty Python fan for as a much younger man, as what tends to happen to younger men. But it's been like years and years. But yeah, I remember thinking oh, that's pretty spicy, and it's like, oh yeah, it's still prescient in all the same ways, and up to and including, you know, the Judean People's Front versus People's Front of Judea as shorthand for how, like, you know when they like have them like, well, we have to take action and take a meeting immediately, like that kind of like like it's perfect, and it's so absurd.
And it's it's the DSA kind of thing too, where it's like you spend more time kind of getting everybody's like I mean, I guess now it's like pronouns and like you know, like their like all of their like identity things. But when he finally comes up like hours later and fucking Brian's on the cross, they're like, well, we want to make sure thank you for women and hermaphrodites, and like they have a list of like, you know, that's what they've been doing at that meeting the entire time, and just listing off like marginalized groups that they can add on to this letter.
Right.
That's right, and that's it, and that's the sum of their action is just the letter. When we've mentioned all the right people in the letter, we're good.
Yeah. And then they thank him for his sacrifice. It's like, no, rescue me, you idiots.
The Pythons documentary actually has John Cleese talking about how he had a tract from a Stalinist who was railing against the Trotsky. That reads just like that scene. So like, this is nothing new.
It's very.
The tracks were the Twitter posts of their day. So
well, the one guy that's sitting there that he's like, oh, that's the Popular Front or whatever, and then they like all yell splitter, and so that's like Trotsky as shit. Like when it gets to the point where the cells of different groups have split off so many times, it's just one guy. Like that's what happened to like every Trotskyist cell.
That's like Martin Luther. He was torching the Catholic Church old school. It was a viral tweet of its day when he put that proclamation on the door.
Yeah,
and I mean, it hits at any bureaucracy.
Still gets retweeted.
It feels. I mean, it feels a lot like my life in academia. Like every meeting, every faculty senate meeting I'm on, it's like it's literally years of just like, okay, let's motion to consider this motion, and then nothing happens. It takes years for the smallest thing to happen. It's just it's painfully on point.
There's like some stuff that's been written after the fact on this movie that's like, it's just surprisingly accurate, and like compared to like the rest of because most Jesus movies are like propaganda, right? Like it's Christian propaganda or it's secular propaganda that's trying to like explore the life of Jesus from our lens. But this movie like obviously doesn't try to do that. And for that
not at
fact,
all.
There's a lot of like, I guess Terry Jones had written a lot of like amateur historian work, so he was actually well versed in, because he was directing it, right? Like,
I think he's a professional historian, but yeah.
Well, and you said Terry Gilliam. I think you mean Terry Jones, right?
Oh, Terry Jones. Yeah,
Terry Jones is the one who directed it. He also did a really lesser known series, and I might have brought this up on this show before, called The Barbarians. That's about basically like it's sort of like an alt history of Roman history, which was written by the winners, of course. That he like outlines in just excruciating detail about how it's like they got to write the history, so they made themselves out to be the good guys like the entire time. And it's kind of, even if you're in the history buff, you're like, there's things in there where it's like, oh wow, that's where that came from. And he just takes a certain glee to just torching him, so to speak. I mean, R.I.P. He did. He passed in 2020, of course. But but like that, having seen all that, well, that didn't exist first time I saw this movie. But it's sort of like all the jabs he takes at the Romans too. It's like, oh, it's pretty even-handed and tame compared to like this actual not funny in the traditional way, but like more informative and interesting like miniseries they did called Barbarians. Where it's basically one of the many things is it's like, oh yeah, it was actually way better to be like, a woman in any of these barbarian tribes than to be like it in Rome. And by the way, why they call them the Vandals? And it's like, well, yeah, they were kept like poking them with a sharp stick over and over again. And then they finally like, if you keep poking us with a sharp stick, we're going to react. They did. And they burned and sacked Rome. So what are they known for? Vandalism. That's vandalism. Yeah. And it's like, no, the Vandals were right. They were completely right to react in the manner they did, but they didn't write the history books.
No,
and I think that's amazing.
I mean, that was a big part of like the tanking of the fucking Roman Empire when it finally started to fall. The other thing, Terry Jones directed The Wind in the Willows, and like the surprisingly like sentimental and like accurate version of it. I remember watching that when I was a kid, being like, "This is also Monty Python." Like, I mean, essentially, you know what I mean? Because it has all the same cast members in it. I remember really liking that when I was a kid too.
Well, he's a bit of a sentimentalist, as well.
Yeah,
not just the.
I actually, the wildest thing I ever did is when my oldest kid first could actually hear outside the womb. Me and my wife went to go see Eric Idle. And so the first thing that my kid heard outside the womb was Eric Idle telling jokes about a big long dick coming into a lake.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I wonder what my kids are screwed up.
He ended up incorporating Always Look on the Bright Side of Life into the Spamalot show in the middle
which is can I just say a remarkable composition. Like it's absolutely fantastic.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, that scene is one of my favorite scenes in any movie ever. It's just fantastic. And I was just watching, have you guys seen the eulogy or like the memorial service for Graham Chapman?
No.
It's really great. So John Cleese has a hilarious eulogy. You see a snippet of that, but then they all gather and they sing Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. And
that's
very,
amazing.
It's very poignant. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
It's great.
I love where they bring on Graham Chapman's ashes so they could have a reunion, and they actually spill it, and John Cleese pulls out a dustbuster and starts.
Yes.
Staggeringly consistent.
Yeah.
It's also notable, and I'm glad that was in the intro, of course, for us, so that like everyone we get mad at this is like, it isn't actually about Jesus though. It's more about the power of like, why followers, especially of religion, just tend to, misinterpret things and like bring their own drama into it, and more like a spoof of like religiosity in and of itself. Because it's a case of mistaken identity. At no point does Brian ever say like, "I'm the Messiah, look at me." It's just he basically stumbles into it.
I'm not the Messiah a bunch of times. Like
he keeps saying he's not, and then they keep denying him.
Well, one time he says he is, because they're like, well, the Messiah would say he's not the Messiah. Like, okay, then I am, and they're like, the Messiah. And it's like you can't fucking. He's like, I love when he kind of looks at the camera. He's like, well, what chance do I have now? Like,
Yeah, the target is 100% the followers. It's just the absurdity of the weird dogmas, and that's what I love about it. It's like just the shoe and the gourd. You take off your shoe, no, follow the gourd, no.
Because of the sectarianism, where it's like no, the gourd versus the shoe,
yeah.
He so Graham Chapman was like an alcoholic when this movie came out, and he quit drinking on the set of this movie. Like he quit cold turkey so he could be in Life of Brian. And John Cleese was like, well, you can only really be in it if you stop drinking, because your drinking has gotten to the point where like we can't rely on you.
If you watch Python, if you watch Holy Grail, you'll notice a lot of cuts whenever Graham Chapman's talking, and it's because they had to like keep feeding his lines because he was too drunk to remember them. And somehow it works.
Yeah, well, so he doesn't say that much in Holy Grail, right? Like, but in this, right, like he talks a lot more, and yeah, so he quit drinking they were like in the Bahamas or something, and I have footage of this. I have footage of them running around in
apparently Keith Moon was hanging out with him too, and Keith Moon was also trying to dry up, but he was I can't remember what that, because at that point, according to what I saw, said that Graham Chapman had already dried out, and Keith Moon was taking something that if you're an alcoholic you take to kind of like even yourself out, as you're withdrawing from the alcohol, but sadly, like Keith Moon passed away before they could film his scene, because he was going to be one of the messiahs, along the road there, and Terry Gilliam did his part.
I think they give you Valium, or back then they would give you Valium if you were trying to dry out, because it like relieved the anxiety from which is another thing that if you stop taking cold turkey, you can die. So it's like you're trading off the only other thing that if you stop doing it cold turkey and you're that like into it, like you could probably die.
Well, this is, believe it or not, the amazing, oh good Lord, naked man already. Semi-naked, that's Terry Gilliam, who's doing an underwear advert as well as just to sort of bring in the few pennies while we did our rewriting. And there's Terry J. has put the waste paper basket over his head. Oh, that's so wonderful. We're all in very good spirits, you can tell, as we were writing here in the this amazing house in Barbados called Heron Bay, where we had assembled to spend 2 weeks finally putting the Life of Brian script into shape. It was already there, but we wanted to do some work on it. Terry Jones and myself had sort of decided that we should finish the work in London and then go on holiday. But John and Eric particularly said, no, there's John, look, typing away with this can of hairspray beside him. Always there, always had his hairspray beside him. Anyway, Eric and John said, no, let's go somewhere very nice and right. And this, he couldn't be nicer than this. Look at it. A sort of Italian-style country house by the Caribbean, which is zooming by as I pan. These were the rooms in which we worked, sometimes en masse, sometimes separately. Here's lunch. Got Eric there. Eric's wife, Tanya's there. And I must apologize because I shot most of this and I was very, very poor cameraman, especially on the close-ups. I hadn't mastered that. So if you see any shots that have me in it, you'll see that they are in focus and competently shot. I was good on trees. I was very good on, I was kind of much influenced by, oh, you see, that wasn't shot by me and it's absolutely in focus. It was me with feeding Terry Gilliam, as I've done many times. But end of lunch, there's Alan Price and Jill, his wife, I think there they are. We had many visitors. We had Alan Price, we had Keith Moon, Mick Jagger. The first night there, he did this amazing, we played charades, and his charade of the Sex Pistols has to be seen to be remembered. There we are. There's Graham Chapman. Graham sort of hovering about. And Terry's, oh yes, Terry's always aware that there's a moment for an audition, he's auditioning his mouth. There's the Duke of Edinburgh, who was a frequent visitor to the house when it was built by Ronald Tree in the 1940s. And there are the scissors, which he might have used, which we now use to edit the Life of Brian. There's clips, and the cuts will be made with those scissors under the beady eye of the Duke of Edinburgh himself. So lovely rooms, very comfortable. And of course, the weather was to die for. It's 82 degrees almost every day. We worked, I think, about 6 hours in the morning, 6 hours in the afternoon. We're always available for a bit of jolly jape. Here's Eric going to do a funny fall. He's gone with his coffee. Very good. house was actually modelled. Yes, Terry, there. And here's Sir. And there's a great sleeping lion, which is rather wonderful. Recumbent lion. The lion's just really too bored to do anything. We had to do certain things. So that is the tree, the same tree that has little apples. And on the very first night, Terry Gilliam ate some of them, and we were having dinner. And the locals said, oh, one thing we should tell you is that big tree with the apples in the courtyard, the fruit is poisonous, so just make sure you don't eat any of those. And Terry went very, very quiet because he'd had about 6. But he was still alive in the morning, and is still alive now by some miracle. Very nasty, fatal, possibly fatal tree. But not to Terry. There's John and a man called Charles Levinson, who I think was a lawyer who came to see us, and lunch was taken. Everything was made out of limestone. The house itself made out of coral, limestone. Here's the table, which was also made out of a huge chunk of limestone.
That was an abrupt ending. That was as abrupt ending as those Terry Gilliam, like, oh, whatever, I'll just draw him out of this one.
Yeah.
It's like mid-drink on that one.
I waited for it to
the
say
poisoned apples. It's great.
Yeah.
I waited for it to say limestone, and I cut it off.
Yeah. And now for something completely different. Yeah.
Granite. Now granite's a completely different thing that I'm putting out there.
That would indeed be a different thing than the other thing that was mentioned before. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they just made up the story about the apples so people wouldn't eat them. Is that just a lie?
Yeah, maybe they didn't talk about any other side effects, so I don't know. Maybe.
But Terry Gilliam did do a lot of drugs.
True.
He might have had like a high tolerance or something.
Yeah, just for whatever.
He's also got the strong American stomach rather than like the British stomach that's used to just eating like mushy stuff and.
So maybe the warning was for the Brits. Like, you guys can't handle these apples. Yeah.
Y'all boil your food, don't you?
Yeah.
No, but so that period, right? They had all gone their separate ways. They had all written because they were writing in pairs, and then they all came back together at that house and spent 2 weeks. I guess in Barbados. I said the Bahamas by accident, but in Barbados, and then they came up with an entire script, which is something that they hadn't done before. Like usually they just kind of let it be their own kind of madness, and there's so much footage that he has for this that I'm like, I don't know when you had time to, like, during those 2 weeks to fucking like write the script or finish it, you know what I mean? Like there's all these like videos, like there's this part where they're playing volleyball for like 10 minutes. Like, it's like, I don't know, you guys seem like you're just doing fun stuff. Like
seems like you're just like having a day. Yeah, exactly.
No, apparently, according to one of the things I watched, we were saying that like they had certain hours they worked, and then they had certain hours where they played. So like the day was broken up really nicely.
Well, he said it in there. He said 6 hours on, 6 hours off, or something like that. But I guess they just didn't film those 6 hours when they were on. They were just like,
no, they were busy working. But he was just like, which is a problem because Keith Moon was always waiting around for us to finish up to play.
That's funny. I think
this keeps going when they hit Tunisia.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so this is a version. So they finished the script at this point, and they've arrived in Tunisia, and so they're just. I could put us on the screen, so like, if anybody wants to stop it and say anything, they can. But
I mean, it's pretty interesting. I can't think of any frame of reference for Monty Python movies being seriously discussed. So I'm sure it maybe has existed at some point or another, but I'm not aware of it. So I mean, there's no.
I don't know, Ryan. Have you read any papers?
I haven't. No, I mean, I feel like there's got to be. I mean, you can definitely draw some very serious themes out of this movie and some of the other movies. Absolutely.
Like I said, it not this one, but Meaning of Life. It taught me the difference between Catholicism and Protestantism in a way that like years of school did not. Because I was I know how it got there, but why are they different?
Yeah, there's like really heavy existentialist themes here, like serious stuff underneath the biggest dickus and all that.
I was reading lots of stuff underneath biggest dickus.
I was reading
like a ball sack.
there's an article that's like Life of Brian, Terry Jones' legacy of a surprisingly historical Jesus. And at the end of this article, they're talking about how like the person that wrote it, I guess, teaches like a theology and film class. And this is like their central film that they have their class.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could build it. I haven't done it, but I want to now. I mean, you could build a whole
you're gonna write
section
a book.
in an intro philosophy class around this film easily.
We're gonna have you come back on when your book comes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, just the meta contextual organizational aspect of it. Like, the unite against the common enemy. The Judean People's Front? No, the Romans. I mean, that alone is like, oh man.
Yeah, gold.
Too real.
Yeah.
Which I mean is kind of like a subtext of the Bible. I feel like one of the reasons that Jesus ends up getting picked up by the fucking, by the Fed. Is they're like, well, this power structure pretty much that he's created through his teaching is going to rival like King Herod, and so it's like, well, we got to take this guy out because he's spitting too much truth about everybody sharing and stuff. We don't want that.
Well, this is later in 1978. Fast forward a few months from the writing session in Barbados. Here we are in Monastir at the Rebat, one of the oldest buildings in the country in Tunisia. And there is the big set that was built. That's a set on the left that was built for Jesus of Nazareth, film with Robert Powell. Here are extras assembling. We used an awful lot of Muslim extras to be sort of Jews of the time. I think they'd been in lots and lots of religious films because this was the center of the big Christian filmmaking. And this is the Rebat, very beautiful entry to it.
What a claim to fame.
And they had allowed us, the Tunisian film authorities, to film here. And so we built this amazing set. Oh dear, what's happened to my Willie? It seems to have disappeared. Anyway, there we are. That's Pontius Pilate. Sorry, not me at all. Pontius Pilate. And we're about to shoot the reactions on the crowd. And he was saying, Willie Swadwick, they have to shout, he wanks higher than any in Rome, and all that sort of stuff. So they've done my shots, and they're now looking at the crowd and Terry is teaching them how to laugh uproariously.
I love that, like the whole thing about how he
sort of wonderful.
He does the RL thing, like the whatever you call that particular speech aphorism, and that everyone the guards just sort of like deal with it, right? But then like the public knows it too, and they goof on him with the whole I'll release somebody, and they keep throwing out fake names so they can just hear him screw up.
Yeah, well,
that's such a Monty Python setup.
But I love that Biggest Dickus has the T8.
He's got the different one, yeah. And it's which is doubly hilarious. But the point of it's funny is they set it up with the guards, cracking up and and then he gets all pissed at them and whatever. And then you see the crowd is getting into it as well. and then then the payoff is that you get to see his good friend Biggest Dickus also has a more different affectation that is in hands of lesser comedic minds, they would just be like, oh, he's got he speaks funny, and that's just going to be a funny thing. But to have it referenced, then meta referenced, and then the actual tag to it is that no, there's first of all, there is a Biggest Dickus, and also
Wadrick.
he can't say things in a more different way.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I did not reread Monty Python's Tunisian Holiday for this. I did recommend it to everybody. But if I remember correctly, in the book, that didn't he say?
You're lucky I'm on air, brother. You're giving me reading material. Jesus Christ, I'm a busy man.
For a Monty Python movie.
Yeah, no, but I think Ryan read that, and I don't know, Forrest, did you read it?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I did the audiobook years ago, but if I remember correctly, there were whenever they filmed this scene, the actors from Tunisia did not quite understand what they were trying to tell them to do, so it took them a little while to explain it.
All right, so I feel like I'm a giant nerd now. I'm the only one who did the homework, but they had to.
It's fine. It's all you. Man. Go for it.
He describes I forget the author's name now, but he describes how they had to teach the extras how to say the lines phonetically because they didn't understand what they were saying.
Okay.
So you had this whole crowd of hundreds of people just learning phonetically to say, Waja, and
Well, I mean, they do it. They do it well. I mean, like I don't know, like the crowd.
It's amazing
when it gets whipped up into like the frenzy or whatever, and they're all thinking of new names to start shouting out. Like that's like an amazing. It's like an iconic thing. And then like the fact that it dawns over Michael Palin over time, right? Like he doesn't realize it at first, and he keeps asking, like he's like, what are they laughing at? And then you know what I mean, like that whole like his slow realization to the fact that like he and Biggest Stinkus both have like these weird speech impediments. There's also the scene. I like the scene when it's the two guys, the two guards, the centurions or whatever, and they both have like these really bad stutters. And John Cleese walks away, and then they're like, "So, how are you guys doing today?" They're like,
by the way, it's Kim Howard Johnson. Kim Howard Johnson is the author.
Thank you. Yeah.
Monty Python's Tunisian Holiday. Absolutely worth reading if you get a chance. It's honestly, I really enjoyed it. I did not think I'd enjoy the book as much as I actually did when I read it.
Yeah, it's a great read. I mean, it's like the ultimate fan experience. Like, just this super fan gets to go tag along, document, play like half a dozen different roles in the movie. Like, wow, like it's fascinating.
Here's another way to tag along by
statues around, and here are the fairly mystified extras from the hills around Monastir. Probably a lot of them just shepherds, really, as they were at the time. One or two of them are, I think that's Charles McEwen. Yes, that's wonderful. One of our rep company. Whoopsie daisy. There's some of the people waiting to be in a comedy film. You wouldn't think so, would you? There's the tower, which Graham Chapman jumped off. And just, it's like filming generally is waiting. It's like, was it Einstein who said life is 96% waiting? Well, filming is about 98%. There's Terry. I'm telling you what to do. Okay. We want you to laugh and point and fall over and make fun of Pontius Pilate. In a minute. Just getting the focus right. Oh, yes, Terry says we need a few more people on the ramparts. There's the man, a Tunisian first director.
Lots of shirtless dudes in shorts in this shoot, but such was the style of
Terry's
it.
behalf. Oh, there we are. There's Andrew McLaughlin, Bernard McKenna, some of our guys. So they've got to close up some of our guys. There's Terry Baylor, I think. Yeah. And there's Sue Jones-Davis, Brian's girlfriend, who later became mayor of Aberystwyth and overturned a ban on showing Life of Brian in Aberystwyth. There's Graham, Biggest Dickus in his Biggest Dickus outfit. John with his studious look.
It's wild that they did this on location. They could have done this at a set and would have been great, but like going to Tunisia for this is amazing.
So it's over 1,000 years old, this Rebat, the old castle, the old fort. And all the things that we put in there, we built ourselves. All these columns, obviously, and the statues are obvious. But even when we did the drawing on the wall, we had to sort of cover the wall with a base. Obviously, we couldn't defile this building. Oh, there they are. They've got it now. They're all clapping and cheering. Yes, he wanks higher than any in Rome. Oh, yes, we've done this. Not again. No, please.
But I guess you're not going to, you wouldn't be able to have it look like how it did if you were doing it in England. Like, there's just no way. You'd have to do the Doctor Who thing.
There's not enough quarries to do this.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you just have to find the one quarry that they use for every Doctor Who episode.
Yeah, I was wondering that. I don't know a lot about filmmaking, so I was wondering, is it more cost effective to go to Tunisia than it is just to build the sets, or what? I mean, what is it?
That's what George Lucas did for Star Wars.
Yeah.
And they used the same sets and a lot of costumes that were actually used before. But it was The Greatest Story Ever Told was filmed a few years earlier there. So there was a lot that they reused, that's like literally just like costumes recycled and whatnot.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. If there's stuff already kind of there, then like
we've already got all the Jesus stuff here. Just go film. Yeah,
exactly.
I think Kubrick shot Clockwork Orange in England, obviously, and had kind of some of those quarry type of thing. Like he had multiple movies that he shot that had like kind of cool quarry like scenes. So I think you probably could do it in England. He had it down the street from his house or something. But I think it works way better, going to Tunisia.
They also just probably want to have the adventure of like, let's go shoot a movie in Tunisia. Screw it.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds cool.
Yeah, we've got that George Harrison money. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's crazy that George Harrison gave them the $1 million. He's like, well, I want to watch, like, I want to know you guys.
I want to see what you're up to. Yeah.
And he wasn't, I guess he became friends with them, but he wasn't friends with them at the time. So it's just like,
it's a good way to get friendly with someone.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, by the way, now taking applications.
Well, he was like a big fan of Monty Python. Obviously, they were fans of the Beatles, and so he was like, yeah, I want to get in on this. And they're like, well, we need like $1.5 million or something to film this movie. And he's like, well, I want to know what the next Monty Python movie is going to be, so I'll throw you guys the money to do this.
Yeah,
I'm sure he got paid back,
Yeah, I mean, he made money off of all the Python movies because he also did he produced Time Bandits and a bunch of other stuff. It's like him and Nesmith. It's weird that.
Well, he started his film company for this,
Well, Holy Grail was like Zeppelin, Floyd, and Jethro Tull, if I remember correctly. That they fronted the money. Yeah, it's granted not nearly so much, but it's
not like Beatle money.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't remember. I want to say it's like 20,000 to 30,000 pounds each for each band, right? Which is obviously still big money, but not Beatles money.
Yeah, and I mean, if Justin Timberlake wants to produce us, well, we're open to it.
Sure, sounds great. Sounds good.
So George Harrison opened up Handmade Films as his company with his lawyer or whatever, his manager, his business manager, and they opened it up in 1978 for this, and ended up using it to produce 25 movies or something,
including what is it, Desperately Seeking Susan, right?
There's a lot on here.
Yeah.
And also he did the Live at the Hollywood Bowl with Monty Python,
which is great. That sketch, I remember for years not getting the joke about why is American beer like having sex in a canoe? Yeah. And then I go to Canada and I have Canadian beer and I'm like, holy shit, it's fucking close to water. I get it.
Exactly. Everyone blasted right past it. Desperately Seeking Susan is the Madonna movie, by the way. And that was a huge deal at the time. It's not a good film. But George Harrison took a vested interest in Madonna and thought that she should be in a movie, basically, and that's how that came to pass.
So I guess they sold it in 1994, the company, and ended up they produced Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Oh, no kidding. So Guy Ritchie's. Yeah. So you could be like, what's the tie between Jethro Tull and Guy Ritchie? Well, I'll tell you. It's Monty Python, strangely enough.
I don't know. It's if you want to make your money back, though, I feel like, I mean, maybe it's a toss up, but I feel like getting into filmmaking, if you're someone that has that much money, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, that's what the Mafia used to do to launder their money was to make really great action films in the 80s.
And The Dentist for Cronenberg, remember?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And they and they also made the fucking one in Cleaver in The Sopranos.
Oh yeah. I must be loyal to my capo. Yeah. One must always remember it's not meant to be taken literally. It's not just the cheesemakers, any maker of dairy product in general. Wife of Brian taught me so much, and I'm grateful. I love that parsing of the. That's such a great scene, where there's the people in the back that can't hear it that well, and then they get him stop talking, and then it just kind of gradually escalates, and then various things keep getting oh, I think he said this, and it's like, no, that's not.
Blessed
close.
Are the Greek. What did he say? Which Greek?
Right, exactly, and it's a perfect analogy for how people react with they're halfway paying attention, but they're more mad at each other for I can't hear it because of you, and then then he starts Terry starts bagging on him for calling him big nose and stuff.
Absolutely,
it just escalates and escalates.
I also love they're when they finally say blessed are the meek. I love that the fucking the guys get it from the Judean people front or whatever. They get to take it away and be like, yeah, well, Jesus is only listing out people that they follow the status quo.
What Jesus fails to appreciate is the meek who are the problem. Yeah, exactly.
That's right. So good. So good.
But Mrs. Big Nose is I'm glad they're getting something. They have a hell of a time.
That's nice for them.
Oh,
that's
nice for them.
Yeah.
like subtle little things, right? Which is like, oh man, that's so great.
Yeah. What I also love about the indie maker of dairy products thing is like that's a dig on just the centuries or the millennia of like theology and like how they can work out convoluted ways to make sense of anything. It's just no matter how absurd it is on its face, will work out a way to give a coherent account of what's going on there.
Right. Up to and including changing the actual text of the Bible, like King James.
Exactly.
I think what Jesus meant to say was.
Slaves, good. That's what Jesus meant to say with that voice.
Exactly.
No, I also think it's really funny when Brian starts trying to do the Jesus preaching later on when he's trying to distract from the guards, and he's like, blessed be the ox.
Because there's one on like every building has one. Like they have their local street prophet, right?
Yeah. So he's like, blessed are the ox, for it is something like he has a really weird one, and everyone's just like, huh? And then he tries to do he tries to tell the story. And he's like, there were two.
Well, what were their names? He's making it up as he goes.
throughout the New Testament, right? Jesus is doing those those allegories where he's like, there were two sons, and he has all these different stories that none of them are meant to be taken literally, because if they were taken literally, they wouldn't have any lessons for today's modern life or whatever. But it's like, so when he tries to do that, everyone's like, all right, like, are you just making this up? Presumably, so was Jesus on the fly.
Which Ryan, does that happen to you in class? Whenever you're teaching, like one of your students will just be like, so these two people are sitting on the bridge and there's a trolley car. Like, what are their names?
Not quite that, but I mean, you always get the ones who are like, wait, this could never happen in real life. Like, that's not the point. The point is just pretend, think through the implications.
You can call those the shoot the hostage students, aka from Speed. Shoot the hostage.
That's right.
I love Brian's mom, just in general.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
The director's commentary. It's great because he's just like, I do believe that's perhaps the greatest voice ever set to film.
There's no Messiah in here. There's a mess, all right, but no Messiah. Now go away.
I love
annoyed by his acolytes.
I also love just like so many lines that she just throws away. Like one of them is like when he's on the crucifix and she's like, oh, you're just doing this to your mother. Like, you know what I mean? She has the whole
yeah.
Go ahead, get crucified.
Yeah. And also when she's walking in and she's like, sex. That's all you talk about. It's literally conversation is not about that at all.
Well, and she comes in hot too with like the three wise men come in. No, we were led by a star. Led by a bottle, more like. It's just like this busting chops immediately.
Like I love also the myrrh. And he's like, it's a bomb. Isn't that some kind of big ass? She's trying to say a bull. Like, I think she.
Yeah, I'm not sure what she thinks it was. Yeah, it's like don't worry about the myrrh next time.
I remember being a kid though and wondering, like, I was like, what the fuck is myrrh?
Like, I mean, like we know Golden Frankenstein.
Yeah,
I still don't know, and like
nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Well, and also that's another thing that if you haven't grown up around it, doesn't make it any less like off-putting. Where it's like, what myrrh? The Sam Hill's myrrh.
All right.
Nobody knows. Okay.
Here's my answer that I finally get to know what I wanted to know.
Did you ask Jeeves what myrrh was? What is myrrh, Jeeves?
It's a gum resin extracted from a number of small thorny tree species, which sounds like a Monty Python bit. The resin has been used throughout history as a perfume, incense, and medicine.
All right. There you go. Okay. Myrrh, everybody.
All right.
Lightly killed to do fiction from Iraq.
I guess frankincense is another incense. So they just gave Jesus shit that smelled good, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well,
you ever smell a baby? Those things stink. I had 2 of them.
Yeah, but baby.
Did you ever smell anyone around that age? I'm sure they all stunk. It probably just was a very odoriferous. That was probably a very valuable experience.
He's also in a manger though. He's in a manger that they've like rented out as a fucking room for like a delivery room. So like that, there's things in that manger I'm sure that smell worse than the baby does.
I think everything in general kind of smelled around that time. People use their hand to wipe. You know what I mean? Like it's probably didn't smell.
And that's why you need that myrrh. And that's why myrrh is it's a commodity, right? They're like.
So do you know what Brian's mother's name was in the script?
No.
It's the Virgin Mandy.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
that's
All right.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite bits too. Is when in the crowd when it's like, "Are you a virgin?" What?
He's like, if it's not too personal, it
Yeah.
gets very personal.
How much more personal can you get?
Well, and so I was watching an interview that John Cleese did, and he was talking about how like it was just something that I've thought about like a lot. So it's kind of crazy to hear somebody like someone else elaborate it. Like just the next day after Jesus is born, right? And it's like, well, Joseph didn't sleep with Mary. Like it's the Immaculate Conception or whatever in the Bible, and it's like he goes down to the pub or he's hanging out with his friends or whatever, and it's like she had a kid, but it's not like your kid. You haven't slept with her. You know what I mean? So she's still a virgin, and it's like she definitely cheated. And it's like what like my thought has always been like, what if Christianity is just it's a lie that fucking Mary told Joseph to be like, I didn't cheat on you. It was God. And so it's just gone on for like 1,000 years.
You know, the crazy thing is I remember one Christmas we were like studying this, and somebody was asking questions about like I'm like in you know, maybe middle school, but at least elementary school, like 5th grade. And I remember distinctly that this person was just like, well, was she a virgin after she gave birth? And the person's like, yeah, they had sex right there in the manger. So yeah.
I hope my guy, you know, Joseph got some after that. You know what I mean?
Let me know,
taking care of the kid. Like you never really hear much about them after that, I feel like.
People are talking about them more and more.
The line he says the birds are scrounging when he's talking about blessed are the birds.
Think about the birds. Do they have jobs? I mean,
yeah, exactly. The whole like the bird discourse is
it's great.
You know, kind of predates today, where we have an interesting bird discourse about
that's
birds
true.
not being real.
Yeah, that's true.
Because birds are fake.
Exactly.
I like it. He's like think about it with you as an example. He's like me. And he's like, yes, you. And he's like, all of you. And he's like, oh, thank you. Like,
yeah. Which actually kind of predates like everyone, you know, like this, all voices being elevated, like the same volume kind of like mindset, right? I mean, everyone feels that way now. It's like, no, it has nothing to do with you. They weren't thinking about you at all. Like, that's just like, you think it is because you're having your importance elevated, your opinion elevated, because it profits these companies. Thank you.
I mean, what were like street corner preachers though, if not the people that were best at projecting their, you know,
sure.
their voice and their ideas out there, and it's like
make it think it's about them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely true.
Also, the haggling is a really funny part of this movie.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Where he's fucking.
He's just trying to get the beard so he can disguise himself.
Yeah,
and it's like no, you have to haggle. Like what? and then he like it's just, you see them getting closer and closer as he just keeps like playing it out. Yeah,
it's like then he gives him the gourd, and it's just like you know, it's 16 in the gourd, and he's like, okay, yeah, keep the change. You know, he's like, what? Yeah, you know, 16 for the beard.
Oh, it's worth at least 10, you know.
But you gave it to me for free.
He later gives somebody else the gourd, and he's like, just take the gourd. And the guy's like, what's wrong with it? And because he won't haggle. But I mean, that is like a big part of that like Middle Eastern like, you know, culture at the time, right? Like everybody goes to the bazaar, they're trying to haggle through everything. You don't have enough money, and everyone's haggling this and that. But it's pretty funny when it's like, you know, like it's like, here, just take the money. Like I don't have time for this. Because you go to the bazaar, you have to spend the day there. I feel like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, and a lot of people do like they enjoy that as an activity. I'm not one of those people, by the way. I freaking hate haggling. Hate it. Give me the price, and I will pay the price, or I won't. That is the end of it.
I did actually haggle in New York City with Forrest whenever we went on our ride around Central Park.
That was not worth the $100 that you paid for around New York. The guy was nice though.
Yeah, he was. I like
2 references.
I probably could have talked him down more, but you know, whatever.
I'm just gonna blast right past it. The blasphemy scene about like how they're like gonna you know take the stones and get
Oh yeah,
the guy that like said the blaspheming word. It's one of the best like send ups of that particular thing I think I've ever seen.
Did you know that was the scene that got their first complaint about the movie?
Really?
But it's not for what you think. It's because this Jewish group in New York City thought that they were making fun of the prayer shawl.
Oh.
Wow, that's what they were focusing on, huh? All right.
It was John Cleese's outfit, yeah.
That's
like,
amazing.
Not the fact that if you like in those times if you said what was thought to literally be the name of God that you would be stoned. They didn't think that was that's
no,
fine.
That was fine. That's fine.
That's historical record. We all know that.
But it's
okay.
the prayer shawl that John Cleese is wearing was being mocked.
And then he keeps John Cleese keeps saying it by accident, and then they end up getting him, which is just very, very funny because like at one point like the guy that's actually there to. It's sort of like he gets in and out too. Like there's a lot of like it's not even gallows humor because there's no actual gallows, but like it's kind of repeated a little bit with like the cross thing where like the one character is just like, oh no, I'm supposed to be released and sent to my own island. Oh, just kidding. I'm just messing with you.
Oh yeah, the Eric Idle character. It's great. Yeah. Yeah, and then later when he's being released, like, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not Brian. Like,
yeah, there was so many like executions back then, right? Like the crucifixions were just like a regular occurrence. Like people were getting thrown into the gladiator ring to just fight to the death, and if you survived for long enough, you could get released. Like there's just so much like the entertainment was watching people die for the most part. Like what else do you really have to do?
And I will say that scene is homaged as well as sort of tagged for a different kind of movie in Idiocracy, where he's like, oh no, I'm going to be released, and they're like, oh, wrong line, that's over there. Which I thought was very funny when I first saw it. I was like, oh, that's from Life of Brian. That's really hilarious. That like, no, but it works in this case.
Absolutely.
I really like the alien just drawing them off, right? Like
like he jumps from the top of this building. You're like, well, how's he gonna get out of this one? It's like, just some aliens fly down and
it's like they don't know, like finding out they don't know either, and that's why the aliens come down. It's just like like that makes sense. Like I don't know.
So when
something absurd happened,
the ship crashed. They had to put that black on the walls there, and they couldn't keep the black there. And so they came up with something to make it look like, it was like they singed the walls, and they couldn't get it off afterwards. And so in the dead of night, one of them snuck in and repainted all the walls.
Oh, wow.
And hoped nobody noticed.
That's great.
Wow. Huh. All right. There's a lot of banal minutia to absorb about this film. I think that it's interesting to me. Well, there's also like multiple. There's more examples than I remember for the meeting of the People's Front of Judea, not the Judean People's Front. Like how like when they go into for the raid. Like when they hide, like one of their reaction is just to throw a blanket over themselves, and then the soldiers like run in and like run out, and it's sort of like, but it's not even like meant to like show that they're like doing a good job of hiding. Like I had forgotten about like those scenes. Like I remember like the initial like the meeting, which is just like doubly hilarious. And I remember very much that we have to take immediate action. Let's have a meeting. Like I remember all that stuff, but I forgot some of that, and also the fact that like I totally forgot about the Suicide Squad too.
Oh yeah, the Suicide Squad.
The Judean People's Front Suicide Squad. It's like, oh,
I mean, it's crazy to like find out like that there's a whole like a whole sequence with all of that, and then they're just like, yeah, we can still have the Suicide Squad show up at the last second. Like, we can keep that part in there. Like,
that's fine.
It definitely feels like that's the culmination of something that was cut out of the film. It's like, who are these people?
Which honestly, there's a great music number in there too. But like the best part is like, we can kill ourselves in 20 seconds flat, and they all kill each other. Kill themselves. Yeah. And then like one of them farts, and he's like, wait a second, you're not dead.
Yeah.
And he's just like, well, no, we just thought we were practicing. Well, what about all the blood? How'd that happen? Oh, it was a cheap splatter. And so, like, whenever they sing the line during, always look at the bright side of life at the end of the movie, it's like, wait, did they actually do the sheep splatter thing again? it's a good callback to that previous
Mhm.
theme. But like, if you don't have that context, then it still
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, so it just seems even more absurd, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like I guess we should address the fact that like the whole he wants to be a woman and then is like kind of like mocked for it, but it's sort of like I remember that being like I was like kind of gearing up for like, oh, this is gonna be rough, and I was like, this actually isn't that bad. It's like it's sort of like not as different as it would be in an actual conversation today when Stan wants to be Loretta, right? Is the and like obviously was it is Reg is the name of the character, right? Is the John Cleese character is like kind of being like like whatever, not exactly thoughtful towards it.
He's being John Cleese, like the actual.
It's literally John Cleese today. Like it's just not even a joke. It's just that's what he still says.
Well, we got an hour and 5 minutes in before mentioning it, but yeah.
I was waiting
Well,
for it.
he
But
both
has to
me
be
and Terry Gilliam have been like, oh, you couldn't make this today, and it's like, I think you could. There's so many fucking trans jokes and
I mean, come on.
Someone out
Dave
there,
Chappelle is still doing these bits. I mean, it's you can still do it.
Everything Dave Chappelle does is worse than that. Like,
far
all right, like
worse,
he doesn't.
I guarantee you that movie Jingle Smells is going to have worse jokes than that.
Well, it's just like I don't know, like what are people gonna say? Like he doesn't have a womb, and it's like, but at least they accept the pronouns of it, right? Like they accept that.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying is like
like
you get that kind of ugly scene, and it's like, all right, well, but then they're start calling him Loretta. And
they're like, okay, you're Loretta now. That's fine. Yeah. So
I also love the line where he's like dumb feminist or whatever, and then Loretta looks at him and he's like, well, no, not you. Sorry.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah. That's you're one of the good ones of kind of reaction. No, you're one of the good ones. Yeah. I mean, there's so much to absorb here, and it's funny because and we haven't really invoked Holy Grail, which I think if Holy Grail had not come first, I think Life of Brian would be like more noted in the comedy pantheon of great movies, because Holy Grail is. Full disclosure, it's my favorite Monty Python movie, and I think it's one of the best comedies of all time.
Yeah.
But Life of Brian's really good, and like it's a shame that it gets kind of like, there's like a shine theory with it or anything where people like don't appreciate it on its own merits because it's less madcap than Holy Grail, and I think that almost
it's a better
more
film. Like it's a film as opposed to
it's a better film.
Exactly.
Holy Grail is a great series of bits, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I think I like Life of Brian better. I mean, I love Holy Grail. Holy Grail is fantastic, but Life of Brian is, I don't know, it's more interesting. It's more cohesive, and again, that last scene, that song, them singing on the crucifixes, like that's the best ending to almost any movie I can think of. It's just fantastic. It's such a beautiful song. It's such a poignant scene while also being hilarious. I love it.
I'm kind of fascinated by the writing process of it too. Whereas like Holy Grail, they just kind of went off and did their own thing, and then
they're just doing what they do in the show, which is just like, hey, we got this crazy thing. Great, I'll do this. Great, I'll do this.
Yeah.
Okay, there it goes. Let's film it.
Yeah. And then how are we gonna end it? I don't know. Well, here come the cops. They'll arrest everyone.
King of the Britain. I like that this is kind of more cohesive. Like I like the juxtaposition of this movie, which is a cohesive movie, even if he's kind of meeting madcap characters all the time throughout it, right? Versus something like Holy Grail, where it's like it's a series of sketches, right? Like it really, and then just kind of joined together, which is kind of how Arthurian tales are written, though. Like
it works it works really well for that. Absolutely.
And there's certain things
even when you watch The Green Knight or something like that, right? Like it's still kind of done as like these kind of side quests or whatever that you're.
Yeah, or fan fictions. Like I mean, that's really what one of my favorite things to do is actually watch videos on the history of the Bible from like actual like historians, like archaeologists and that kind of stuff, talk about that kind of thing, and like the evolution of how the books of the Bible came together and the books that got left out and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of it's just fan fiction. It's like, hey, this obscure character that's over here in this one book, why don't we write a whole series of books about him, how he became like,
how many books really are there at that point? I mean, there's like there's like
so
old
many
poetry. No, like there's like some old, like I'm talking about, like,
how many books in the world?
Well, just like
we don't know because the Library of Alexandria burned down, but
yeah, true. There's also like I mean, I guess there's like Chaucer and stuff like that, but like there's like a lot of poetry. There's like the Bible, and like there's like a little pantheon, but it's not like we have today where it's like everybody gets kind of interested in their own little corners.
But that's how it was back then with writing some of these books. Like there are these weird books of the Bible about like how Jesus used to like pull practical jokes on people.
I think that's on True TV, isn't it?
It's like, watch this. I'm going to turn all your blood into wine.
Why is that out of the Bible? That would be amazing. Jesus would be so much more relatable if we could hear about his practical.
Who's a prankster?
Yeah.
Jesus goes away at age 12.
You got crested.
He goes away at age 12, but he comes back at 30. And there's no real like. He's not like, hey,
he went to India.
I guess it makes sense where you have maybe an Arrested Development sense of humor, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Mormons are like, oh, he came to America and like walked around America.
That's right. Yeah.
All these like sects of Christianity have their own ideas about what Jesus was doing in his lost years in the wilderness. I think jerking off a lot, probably mostly, but
I'm gonna go with he was just pulling pranks. He was just
he actually murdered somebody with his powers and brought him back to life.
Yeah.
That book of the Bible was left out because it was something about the tonality, like it didn't fit the rest of the tone of the book.
That's literally what the church said whenever they did the Council of Nicaea.
The vibe was off. I believe it was the exact term. The vibe was off.
So said the Pope. So saith the Pope.
I think they found something like 40 like books of the Bible. Like like most of them are just like, this is not Jesus' best work. Let's say that.
Yeah, it's like when Stephen King took a hiatus and then came back, and some of them it's like, maybe you should have stayed on hiatus, man. It's not that great.
Blessed are the 5 for $5 deals at Wendy's. Like
it's really specific. There's product placement. That's weird.
Maybe this one can cut. Like,
I think we have to address the fact that look, there's a whole scene in here of men pretending to be women, pretending to be men. Which I think is deeply hilarious, but also tastes have changed, and the appetite for that is no longer as prevalent. If it ever was,
scene has brown face, so
it does, which is harsh. But I do think that is what are you gonna say for that? But the whole it's you can't be a woman to go to this public execution. So they dress up as a man, but it's like, a man dressed up like a woman, dressed up like a man, doing a woman's voice.
It's like the whole reason why they dressed up as women in the first place is because they didn't have that.
They didn't have any women cast members, exactly.
Yeah, except for Carol Cleveland, who occasionally, if they really needed a woman, they just thought it was funnier whenever they did the women parts.
Yeah, and they're not wrong. I mean, it's
no. If Carol Cleveland doing that, it's just she's funny, but not that funny. Not funny as the cast and drag funny. So
I'm sorry, but women just aren't funny.
Oh God, there it is. All right.
And so to see them do that, it's like, of course they're going to do that because that's just Monty Python dressing up as women again. Like that's
I really like all of Terry Jones's women character. Like he's the funniest one.
He's the best.
He's so good at it. Yeah. It's just hilarious.
I was watching Every Sperm is Sacred, the fucking sketch from
Meaning of Life.
Yeah, and he's in that one too, and he's like an old because he has a matronly face. I think that's what it is. Like no matter what he's in, because it's like round.
Yeah, it works really well.
Yeah.
If a sperm is wasted, God gets quite irate.
That's just that sketch was very funny when I was a kid, and now it's just like U.S. policy and like half
well.
And like every sperm, this is the Every Sperm is Sacred bill, and it's like, God damn it.
Didn't they know that was humor? This is a joke.
Yeah,
that's a problem with religious satire. Sometimes it becomes true, and it's not funny anymore.
Yeah.
I like getting back to this film. I like that the Brian's like an unwilling also ran of Jesus, like, and that's sort of like, which is so funny to think that, because I think people just hear Monty Python, especially then you got to remember there was no like Mr. Show, there was no like even Saturday Night Live at this point, right? So like it was like, oh, they're coming for our religion, they're gonna make fun of it. And it's like, well, yeah, but they're not specifically making fun of Jesus. They're making fun of like the followers of the religion and how it's misinterpreted.
Did you all get to watch that debate that they had?
I have like a clip of I have a clip that I pulled of it. We can do that later on though, because I want to keep talking about the movie before I get to like the debate part of.
Sure.
Yeah.
The interesting thing to me though is that they said that like they originally were going to do something about Jesus, but Jesus isn't funny. Like the lessons that you learn.
Well, I mean, it's just good advice. Yeah, it's like it's just like nice way to live.
Yeah, he seems like a respectable guy. The jokes would be pretty shallow. You couldn't do that much. So let's.
No, I mean, like killing somebody and bringing them back to life is only funny when you're 8.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they were like, yeah, we can't really like being sacrilegious is not as funny as making fun of the people that follow their religions like blindly, like people with blind obedience to it, which is the same thing with the political People's Front of Judea. Like it really is just a satire of people that don't think for themselves, and like the bureaucracy of it on the political side, and like the fucking just listening to whatever the church says and kind of taking your own telephone version of it on the religious side.
Yeah, it's you're all individuals. We're all different. I'm not,
I'm not. It's so good.
Yeah, just the one with the guy in the back.
I love when he says, there's the one guy in the room and he's like, we would all die to fight the Roman Empire, and the one guy says, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Exactly.
All right, everyone but him. Then the John Cleese character, like Reg, like he decides to like stay back. So they all have to go into the tunnel, and he's like, "Oh, my back!" Like,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, solidarity. He says solidarity. I forgot he says that.
Because he actually plays Pontius Pilate's wife in the cutscene, which does not work. Like if you watch it, you're just like, yeah, this isn't working at all. The fake boobs were hilarious, but that's about it.
Yeah, there's a picture of it in the book, and it looks hilarious. I'm like, oh, why did they cut this? But yeah,
no. If you see it, like John Cleese is acting terribly in the scene. They don't really have much like reaction time. You're like, it's confusing what happens in it.
He's not very good at. John Cleese is the one that's not very good at playing a woman. Like.
Well, the ones that work with John Cleese playing a woman is where it's very clear that it doesn't matter if he looks like a woman at all.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of like, and that's, I think, where they get a lot of heat for, is this supportive versus transphobic or whatnot, comes from that, because it's just like, it just doesn't work even a little bit with him. And so so then it's usually played off in the fact that, well, that's very clearly like a dude dressed up like a lady, and then like that's, but it's just how he looks. I mean, it's not anything, like it's just he doesn't have that right face. But I will say that this is a great. Everybody shines in this, but John Cleese is very good in this. And no matter what stupid stuff he's saying on Twitter, which I don't look at, it doesn't erase the fact that he's very, very funny in this. And honestly, probably like one of the MVPs.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, this is a long freaking time ago. Peace and love. What has he done lately?
John Cleese can't make a movie like this anymore.
Yeah.
No.
I liked the sketch where he plays Hitler, but he's not really Hitler.
Yeah.
He's like the modern version of Hitler or whatever that's like running for British Council.
But I think one of the things that made Monty Python so interesting, and this is not like some grand epiphany or anything, it's been talked about over the years, is the fact that it was an ensemble with everyone kind of that had different skills and different styles, similar-ish styles of comedy in a lot of cases. But it was an interconnected mesh that they filled in each other's gaps, so to speak.
Which is why it's interesting that there's like a dozen shows that they were all part of first, where it's like, oh, 2 of them were on it, or one of them was a cast member, and the other ones were writers. And it's like that you could go through an entire list where it's like, they were all like 1 or 2 of them would be on the show, and then they finally found their writing partners, which it was Chapman and Cleese, and it was Michael Palin and Terry Jones, were like and then Eric Idle, I guess, was a genius enough that he wrote on his own.
Yeah.
Shout out, John Cleese is still okay in A Fish Called Wanda. Definitely. Fish Called Wanda is great. I actually watched that again a year and a half ago. I was like, this is still pretty awesome.
It's a
I
fantastic
have it on
movie,
VHS upstairs.
Nice.
But again, as much as there were like whatever little splinter cells of Monty Python that like would work together and stuff later on, like there was something about them all being at the top of their game comedically, but also again filling in the blank spots for each other, like and knowing intuitively how to do that in a way that we kind of take for granted now. But there was no precedent for this at all. I mean, I know this isn't about like Monty Python in general, but like. If you look at like the other like comedy troupes that were around at the time, it's sad and like kind of a bummer, frankly. Yeah. And so like anything, if you're coming in from a perspective of, like anything like Kids in the Hall, or like anything like Mr. Show, or, I can't even think of any modern examples, but like all of that, there's a direct line back to it. Just in like that
absolutely.
first of all, you can do it and it can be wildly successful and culturally important.
Yeah.
But
it still
also,
works.
But also, and again, like, just like with some bands where it's like, I almost wish that band didn't exist because their imitator bands are so horrible. There's a lot of bad sketch comedy out there. In fact, as an aggregate average, probably most of it's bad, frankly. But you can't look at it that way. You have to look at the fact that they were finally honing an art form, really.
Yeah.
And that at the time, television, remember, this is decades before prestige television, and movies were considered a higher form of art. So the fact that like they not only brought it in as a movie first with Holy Grail, which is it's very much like the show, a lot of bits, a lot of jumping around, a lot of now for something completely different. That to have like a movie with like a strong narrative that isn't literally just gags every second. Like there's a lot of gags, don't get me wrong, but like it slows down to tell this overall story, which is sort of insightful and poignant in its way, and obviously still socially relevant to a lot of our situation.
Like, painfully so, yeah.
Because if you think about the time, what do you have? Strangelove, okay, sure, but that's Kubrick. Kubrick is not known as a jokester. Like he's telling like a deep satire, but I think it's notable. It's notable to me, and I think it gets ignored in modern conversation because it's one of those things that. Think about the Beatles, right? That like before the Beatles, the band and songwriter weren't necessarily thought to be the same thing. You had like your Bob Dylan and whatnot, and that's a troubadour. That's a different mindset. But the idea of like the band that like wrote all their own stuff, even the Stones when they started off, were like covering like blues standards and things along those lines.
Yeah,
and they changed what the idea of a band was completely. And the fact that like, oh no, the band is like writing their own songs, and believe me, there's plenty of bands that shouldn't be doing that either. But like, they changed the game literally, and in that same way, Python changed the game for sketch comedy. Arguably, what passed for sketch comedy before Python, again, sad, like not very funny, not very interesting or clever.
Best might have been Benny Hill.
What you get with the whole thing is he's a perv. All right. Yeah. Like that's the joke. Well, is that a joke?
And he runs fast.
He's chasing women around and there's yakety sax playing. But it's not telling any greater like thing of like social import or whatnot. And with Monty Python, that begets things like the young ones. It begets things, like to a certain degree, Saturday Night Live, things along those lines, etc.
Smack the Pony.
Yeah, and this is like unlike Benny Hill, like this still holds up. Like I show this to my teenage nephews now.
Still
like
Holy
Grail. They like, this is hilarious. This is great. Show me more.
Benny Hill has not held up. Arguably, it didn't hold up at the time.
I'm not going to show Benny Hill to my nephews.
Hey, you want to see how ideas on gender have changed? All right, here's some.
that song still slaps though.
No, Yakety Sax is awesome. I'm definitely. I wish I wrote Yakety Sax. It's awesome. But but that speaks to the larger point because again, there's a lot of historical revisionism, especially in relation to comedy. Because people look at things from a modern comedic sensibility, which has changed. It's changed a lot in the last 10 years. And honestly, probably for the better, frankly. Because a lot of comedy was like, alleged comedy was just mean. No, you're just being mean and then waiting for the laugh line, right? And then like, okay, maybe there was a tag to it or whatnot. And again, it's funny for me to be talking about this. I'm a musician, right? But like as as a student of the creative arts in general, like it's.
But I mean, you're also a performer, so like there are lessons that you can take from watching, comedy like this to bring onto stage, because there's a theatricality to it,
and retroactively going back and saying it's invalid because it doesn't match your current sensibility is
no. I mean, I'm a comic book artist. I love John Singer Sargent. Like John Singer Sargent doesn't do comics. He's a painter.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean. David Lynch is like painting with film, right?
Or ants.
Or ants, as we established with that pretty as a picture clip, which I'm glad I found in the context of the show and not later. But anyway, whatever. I'm getting down off my soapbox. Thanks for coming.
No. There are lessons to any art form can be taken lessons from to be transplanted into any other art form is a very valid point, and I co-sign it.
Yeah. There we go. Co-signed. Anything else? Or should we go to Letterboxd one-liners?
I'm down to go to Letterboxd one-liners.
All right. So, cracks knuckles. Letterboxd, of course, is a social media site for film lovers talk with and to each other about the films that they love, maybe the films that they didn't love, the films that they retroactively applied their comedic sensibility to when they were finished well before their entire living and maybe even their parents' living. And, of course, this is best expressed succinctly. There's not just the Siskel's and Eberts of the world. Everyone gets to have their say. Everyone gets to chime in. It's a bottom-up democracy. Everyone can be the, I'm not, of any particular situation, and that's what makes it wonderful. And, of course, the succinctness is very important for this bit. Which are the Letterboxd one-liners for Life of Brian? Well, we're going to put them on stage here. We're gonna read them out, and we're goof on them and agree with them. So glad in these trying times we can all unite against a common enemy, the Judean People's Front.
That really is like a Trotskyist Stalinist fucking split, though. Like it really, classic.
It absolutely.
That's aged like the finest of fine wine, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. As a member of the National Latin Honor Society, I must say the Romans Go Home scene was real as shit.
Oh God, I forgot about that
make
scene.
sure that those Jews like learn how to speak their Latin. You know what I mean? Like you're there to tutor them in the Latin.
That
Apparently,
scene was hilarious.
John Cleese was actually a Latin teacher, and that is how he ran his class.
No kidding.
It is great.
He's like trying to conjugate their verb, and like I mean, it's such a. And then like his punishment, of course, is to write it 100 times. The gourd. We must worship the gourd. Very wise, because this is how I feel about gourds.
Yo,
they gave us the banjo.
I mean, if you get like a big enough gourd, they're impressive. They can be impressive.
That's what Biggest Dick has said.
This review brought to you by Big Gourd, our new sponsor.
Gordon Ramsay.
I was looking for the Passion of Christ for a theology class. This was better.
That's literally what they write in that article I was talking about. Pretty much, she's like, I didn't show my kids like the Passion of the Christ. I showed them Life of Brian instead because it was a more theologically accurate film. And it's like,
absolutely,
yeah.
I bet
no one's trying to like propagandize to you besides to tell you to think for yourself. And I love that the speech really is like he's like everybody think for yourselves, and it's like.
Don't
be
a follower. Be authentic. Think for things for yourself. Find your own authentic meaning. Yeah, again, I totally want to do a whole existentialist segment and an intro to philosophy class from this film. You could totally do it.
Sounds good.
Tweet the most unhinged things you can think of, and then no one wants to be in the group with you. And
yes, I've rated this the same as Killers of the Flower Moon. What are you gonna do? Crucify me? It's got to think about it for a second. Mm-hmm. In high school, we used to do the Michael Palin X Leopard jig a lot. Yeah, we were cool.
That's one character we didn't touch on that is very funny.
No, X Leopard is great.
Yeah, it's literally my subtitle, but we haven't talked about it at all. You're right.
It's the same energy as the he turned me into a newt. I got better.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But I love his jig around the shit in the middle of the street.
Yeah, where he just like kind of dances around it. Yeah. Want to talk about ahead of its time? Before Grammar Nazi, there was Grammar Centurion. Before Big Dick Energy, there was Biggest Dickus. Enough said.
True.
Nice.
True.
That is a mic drop.
Yeah.
Thanks to George Harrison for buying a $4 million movie ticket so we could watch this masterpiece.
For
He
real.
really did.
Yeah.
Like, be the change you want to see in the world. I guess that's my the lesson of the George Harrison thing.
Oh yeah, I do. If I was a rich guy, I'd do cool stuff like that all the time.
If
man.
I was a rich man.
Yeah, you wouldn't be building staircases. You'd be making Life of Brian.
Goddamn right.
I would be building MC Escher staircases.
That sounds cool too, though. Damn, bro, you got the whole squad crucified.
Yo, he gets crucified with the same couple from the beginning, where they're all watching
From the argument, yeah.
yeah. And then I love the whole like the Jewish cemetery bit where like this was supposed to be a Jewish only area of the. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, raise your hands. Yeah, because they're like, It's good physical humor.
By the way, the Good Samaritan, like the guy was like, "Oh, I'm a Samaritan." It should have been the guy that picked up the cross for him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I agree. Is it ethical to enjoy a movie solely based on how many times they say "biggest dickus"?
That was me when I was 8.
As a philosophy professor, yes, it is.
So you're the most qualified for the answer. So there you go.
But literally, like as an 8-year-old, I was like enjoying it just solely based on how like that scene was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. I think up to that point.
Yeah, it works on so many levels.
It's still pretty funny.
Yeah. There's something there for the 8-year-olds. There's something there for the philosophers. It's broad appeal.
Still good.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So there you go. Those are Letterboxd one-liners for Life of Brian. Please go follow the show at Movie Night Extra. That is the show's account. That is a new account that we're going through.
Not mine anymore.
We're at. I was gonna get to that. I'm changing up the talk up, dude. That is, we're posting stories of all the episodes that we do. So if you're on Letterboxd, you can check those out. Follow the show. At Always Flacco is Naughtius Maximus. He went out for wine and never came back, but he does come back to Letterboxd to log things now and again. So if you want to follow him and see what he did a joke review of Life of Brian. Didn't land. Sorry, my man. Did not land.
Yeah.
I got it, but I think I get why people were confused.
I did it from the perspective of someone from the People's Front of Judea that was reading the movie one to I'm explaining to the podcast audience.
Yeah. No, I got it, but yeah, didn't work. But don't judge him for that. He's on there logging all the movies that we cover on here as well. I am Conan Neutron, the ex-leper in question, doing the said jig. I am watching the highbrow, the midbrow, the Populous Fair, everything in between. Finished the Criterion Challenge, so there's a new one starting up in December. But everyone can clap for that if they feel so inclined. But follow me along for next year's Criterion Challenge, and I don't know, whatever the hell else I get up to for the next month and a half, I guess. But I'm all over that biz at Conan Neutron. J. Andrew, Holy Gourd World is the People's Popular Front of Judea. Just one guy. And he's watching all the weirdest stuff. So you don't have to, or maybe so you can. And it's not for me to judge. I'm just over here calling balls and strikes about it. But he's doing it either way. So go check him out on Letterboxd right about now. And he will... Number 2. Yeah, I've never understood why it's 2, but I don't care about the answer. So
it's a boring answer.
Then I want to hear it even less now. Ryan Lake, I don't believe you are on Letterboxd, right?
I am not. I should create.
There is a Ryan Lake on there, and I thought that was you for a second, but then it said something about Canada. I'm like, I think this is a different dude. So
no, I grew up in Michigan, almost Canada, but not quite.
Almost, but not quite.
I'll get on there.
It's almost, but not quite an interesting story.
But you were fingering Canada.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Holy Gourd, let's take it away with the plugs, why don't we?
All right. Right now, you're watching us on YouTube, so please do these YouTube things: like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell, and of course, the big ask is to watch the video to the end. That allows us to be found in the algorithm by other movie fans, and you get the advantage of hearing a great Conan Neutron song there at the end. So it's a win-win.
Right.
There you go.
I don't see a dime from it, but you get to hear it.
But you can find us on social media. You heard about our Patreon not Patreon, but our Letterboxd page. But we're also on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Facebook.
Threads too, by the way, but that's kind of low key.
Yeah. But you can find us on all those.
It's the only low key on Threads, frankly. Am I right? Hey.
But if you happen to follow any of those channel, any of those social media things, that's your thing. Find us there. We'll, say hi to us. We're looking forward to meeting
you. Is Threads anyone's thing?
There's a bunch of people on it. They're all giving like
Yeah.
prayers to the algorithm for some reason, but like there's a bunch of people that seem to like it for whatever reason.
I don't know. I sacrificed my youngest for the algorithm, and that didn't work.
Damn.
Down to 2 kids now.
I was gonna say that's a harsh joke. Yeah.
Yeah. But we do have a Patreon. I kind of let the cat out of the bag earlier with that, but yes, go check out our Patreon. Nice thing with the Patreon is you can go back and watch our past after parties. So we're doing one tonight, I believe. At least we've talked about it.
No idea. Sure.
Yeah, he created. There's one created. So we may do one. And Ryan, you can join us if you'd like.
If only there was someone on the show that knew.
I'll probably have to skip this one just because I'm unprepared for my classes in the morning.
We're
but
just inviting you anyway. It's okay.
That's
Okay.
I expect
Yeah,
it.
invitation
If you guys,
withdrawn.
if you guys do any more Monty Python movies, though, I'll plan better.
All right.
So I can do the after party. Yeah.
I like how you weaved into a passive ask to be on the show again. That's good.
I just expect I'm going to be on for all future Monty Python movies.
Resident
I'm on for the
Monty
first-
Python historian Ryan
Exactly,
Lee.
yeah.
Well, I mean, until we get Eric Idle on.
Well, that's fair. You can butt me for Barry. I'll accept
Ruthless.
Yeah. But Conan, you got lots of stuff happening right now in the Conan
Usually
Neutron
do.
universe.
Yes. The Conan Neutron cinematic universe. So the video for Wild Antics by friend of the show, Mark Borchardt, premieres tomorrow on Punk News. That's off of Adult Prom by Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends, the latest record that is now just barely a month old. And neutronfriends.bandcamp.com to get that. Punk News is the outlet that is premiering it. So look for that link. It's just basically me acting the fool for about 3.5 minutes. So there you go. If that sounds of interest to you. Boy, have I got a video for you, kid.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, kid. I got a video for you.
And of course we got a Protonic Reversal, the thing that people have been staring at behind you.
The visual. Yeah.
If you want to know what that's all about, it is Conan's long form music interview show. And who you have coming up?
Long form and long running. So I just had Gary Floyd of the Dicks on, Sister Double Happiness, Black Cali Ma. That is now in the general feed and out to the world at large. It's Nina Nastasia on Thursday. So who's an amazing singer-songwriter, really talented lady. And that's gonna be awesome. And that's gonna be something that like a lot of things with my show, almost 10 years now, is going to be for the nerds that it's for. And I say that with peace and love in my heart. Peace and love.
And of course, go to Patreon and support Conan. It's $1 a month to get episodes of Protonic Reversal early. So if you can't wait for that, help him out. That keeps the lights on over at the Neutron household. And
I need a lot of them for this green screen. So
it's an LED green screen.
Exactly. It's a wood burning green screen if we keep dropping patrons like we have. And also because I was out on tour a lot of October, dropped a few patrons. So anyone that wants to jump in on that get something out of the show, it's always appreciated. But that's it. That's the only thing is $1 a month early access. I'm very populous that way.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Ryan, I don't know if you have anything to plug besides your social medias.
Don't have much to plug lately.
That's fine. We used up all the plug time for me.
Okay. Perfect.
Speaking of which, I forgot one. I'm going to be on This Is Revolution to talk about the Bandcamp Epic buyout and the Song Trader thing, which is going to be a larger conversation about sustainability in music and direct support to artists, which is going to be a great conversation. And I've been wanting to do this for a long time. So
Mutual aid for artists.
We're at that point. Anyway, tell us more about stuff you don't have to promote, Ryan.
Oh, I mean, I'm Chaos Pet on all the social media stuff. I draw comics for dailynews.com, which is one of the big philosophy blogs. And yeah, that's about it.
Fantastic. Yeah. And of course, I just want to shout out Christina, who's not here. Please go to her Patreon, check her out on Twitch whenever she's on there. And, go to patreon.com/cosmopolitics and support her if you want to see her more.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing her more.
Ryan, do you have final thoughts? Anything you want to get to?
I not really. I'm tempted to go back in the day when we used to do movies on Give Them an Argument. My old classic movie review. Good movie.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Very binary thing.
Andy?
Yeah, this is you know, I gotta say, like this is definitely one of my you know, probably my, it's definitely not my favorite, but it's like my top 3 Python films.
Yeah,
but
easily in the top 3.
Yeah. The thing is like what works about it is like it actually works as a film. It's the only one that does, because the other 2 films that they did were basically sketches. I do think that life, you know, meaning of life, you know, is what it is because of the fact that this movie was you know, such a great linear story, and they kind of you know, they I wish they did more of this. I really did. Like, I would love to see another like long form story. But sadly Graham Chapman passed away, and was it 89? I think it was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did Meaning of Life next, and that's just, you know, they're back to doing sketches too. Like,
yeah, that was like 82. I mean, they might have had time, but like John Cleese was busy doing his own thing, and everybody else was. And sadly, they never got back together. So you know, which kind of breaks my heart, because there, you know, it would have been nice to have one more Monty Python movie, but
it would have.
You know,
they were in and out of each other's stuff though. Like, I mean, I feel like it's cool.
Splinter Cell style, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of side projects that they did, but it's not quite the same, because it's one person driving the project as opposed to like a collaboration among them all. So yeah.
Conan, final thought.
It's a fantastic satire. It's a send-up of religiosity, community organizing, and the nature of belief, and absolutely obnoxious followers of all those things. And it's aged a lot better than a lot of people give it credit for. It isn't quite the gag a minute of Holy Grail, but the laughs are long and loud, and I think it's one of the great religious satires still, after all these years.
Yeah.
Well, guys, do you find it visible when I say the name Dickus? Dickus.